musicality and the emotion, tone, texture, lifelikeness of music is very important. Nagra checks off all those boxes. Very passionate about what you guys are doing. I really love the support that Renee has been giving us, and obviously, you know, everybody in Switzerland also. Hey, I'm Adam Wexler, and I'm the owner of Resolution Audio Video in Brooklyn, New York. We've been in business for 16 years, and we are proud to represent Nagra in the New York City, Brooklyn area. We carry a number of different brands that all have a very similar kind of vibe to Nagra for a number of different reasons that we'll talk about. But we also represent Shindo Laboratories, Accuphase, Sugden, Leben, Rockport speakers, DeVore Fidelity speakers. The list goes on. Fyne Audio, DCS, HiFi Rose, EMT, well-tempered turntables, Brinkmann turntables, Rega turntables, and the list goes on. That's a good question. In terms of the first time I saw Nagra hi-fi gear, my first exposure to Nagra wasn't necessarily the hi-fi gear that we know of today. It was the Nagra reel-to-reel players and recorders. So I'm a very big fan of live music. So in going to concerts that allow taping of live music, I saw a lot of people taping the performances with Nagra decks. And in the field of all the people recording the performance, these Nagra pieces definitely stuck out as something to me at the time. I didn't know necessarily what they were, but I was like, well, that guy looks like he's serious about what he's doing because that piece of equipment looks like nothing else that anybody has there. You know, very, very professional and just beautiful. So I've read about Nagra for many years. I've been into hi-fi since, well, I was very, very, very young. And at shows, I've seen it and heard it back in the day, and it was very intriguing and sounded beautiful as well. I did not know anybody that personally owned it, but I was very curious about it. And then when reading more and more about the brand itself, it became evident that it was something that that I started to lust after. The philosophy of the products that we've curated in our space is extremely intentional. First and foremost is the sound, obviously. The sound that we're looking for is a beautiful, natural sound. While measurements and all those things are important to, you know, in this world, for us, it's about what will evoke emotion. That's what we're trying to do, right? When somebody sits down in our listening room to listen to music, or even when someone sits down at home to listen to music, it's an intentional thing, right? What are they trying to do? They're trying to feel happy. They're trying to feel feelings, right? Happy, sad, remember somebody that they loved, revisit a performance that they attended, or transport themselves to a performance that they were unable to attend. You know, Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock, you know, we can't go back, but let's see how close we can get. So for us, musicality and the emotion, tone, texture, lifelikeness of music is very important in the music, you know, we want to reproduce here and with the equipment that we select. So Nagra checks off all those boxes. Additionally, what's very important to us is the type of relationship that we have with a manufacturer. In this day and age, as time has gone on over the past, you know, let's say 20 some odd years that I've been involved in doing this, manufacturers have come and gone. Manufacturers have promised that their product will never be obsolete. It's always updatable, yada, 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 all of that stuff. Nagra has this heritage where when they say there's going to be an upgrade or something's upgradable, they stand behind that. And for us, being able to trust the manufacturers that we work with is paramount, because the way we look at it is whether somebody is coming to us to buy something for $500 or $500,000, we want to make sure that the manufacturer can support us in standing behind what we've sold to them, because $500 is a big investment to somebody and $500,000 is a big investment to somebody. You know, it's all relative in terms of how much somebody spends on something, but we take that just as seriously. Manufacturers that come and go or aren't really set up to support their customers and their dealers put us in a very awkward position and really don't paint a good picture of us if we sell something and we can't support that customer and the product that we've sold. So obviously Nagra is coming up on being in business for 75 years. That heritage, that lineage proves a lot of things to us. Meaning that obviously they have the lasting power and the will to continue to be in this business, but also all that time perfecting their craft and refining their sound and just making beautiful products means something. So a lot of the other manufacturers that we represent, let's say Accuphase or Shindo, they've been in business forever. And they stand behind their products, and their products have slowly been refined over time. At the same time, it's not the type of manufacturer that we like to work with that has the amplifier that's the MK2, MK3, MK4, MK5, where it's just kind of like a marketing play to keep on moving more boxes. Is that when they make changes in their products or have new products, it's very intentional that they're doing so. I didn't mention before, but we're a McIntosh dealer also. McIntosh has heritage. They were at Woodstock. They were at the Wall of Sound with Grateful Dead. They've been everywhere. They're part of our cultures. They're woven into our culture's fabric. And Nagra is the same way, right? Nagra has been in the movies. Nagra's been to the moon. Nagra has recorded, famous live performances. So that's very important to us. And then lastly, a lot of the things that we look at when we're trying to select a brand, and this is what we've done with everything we've curated, because of the ticket, the price of admission, the investment that someone might make to own a piece of Nagra gear or some of the other equipment that we represent. It's not inexpensive. We like pieces that are timeless, right? So from an aesthetic standpoint, that you can purchase something and know that it doesn't have features that will be outdated. It's just very functional, and that aesthetically it's pleasing, and on your hi-fi rack is going to look brand new from day one or 20 years from now, right? It does not look like some type of convoluted alien spacecraft type thing that's got the latest lights and screens and bells and whistles. So a lot of a terminology that I'll use is kind of like heirloom quality equipment, right? Something that you might enjoy for 20 years, and then maybe you're going to give to your kids, and they're going to enjoy it for another 20 years. Getting away from this new reality of commoditization of electronics, where it's like, yeah, I'll enjoy it for 3 years and then just throw it in the dumpster, right? This is something that you're going to buy and hopefully love and cherish forever. An analogy also from the design perspective of timeless that I've been giving a lot of people, and it's maybe I need to work on the analogy a little better, but if you look at a 1980 Nissan Sentra, and then you look at a 1980 Porsche 911, one looks very outdated and the other looks like, man, I'd love to freaking own that. That's beautiful, right? And even though, 30, 40 years have passed, it's still this timeless design as well. And that's something that's really important to us, because as music lovers and audiophiles, or however you want to classify yourself, you also want to have that pride of ownership of what you're investing in and what you're putting in your home and interacting with on a daily basis and seeing there every day. And for us, that's important. There's some pieces that I've owned here, like I have a inexpensive Leben integrated amplifier that I've owned for over 20 years. It's just as beautiful as the day I bought it, and it brings me just as much joy to look at it and listen to it as the day I bought it. And I hope that one day when one of my sons goes off to college, he's going to bring that to his dorm room and he's going to use it there, because it won't look like something that's been outdated by an MK 2, 3, 4, or 5 thing. And sonically also, in the first place, it sounded great then, it sounds great now. And so that's kind of the vibe that we're going for here, and I think we're really achieving it. Well, it's an interesting question. So my hi-fi system at home is in a state of constant rotation. Obviously, a question we get a lot from customers is, well, what do you own? And my answer now is, I own everything. Everything you see in here, I own. So at home, I have children who were young and now have kind of grown up. And so for a while, most of my hi-fi listening was done here in the traditional sense of sitting down and just enjoying music. So at home, I use DeVore Fidelity speakers, but in terms of electronics, it's kind of always just rotating and bringing things home and getting that at-home sense of what something sounds like in I would say a real world environment. Although our listening room is very set up like a real world environment, it's not heavily sound treated or what have you. So yes, I've brought Nagra products home, but it's always a constant rotation there, because as we know also, unfortunately, or fortunately, or I don't know how you want to look at it, we spend most of our time at work.
and you're lucky to work with your passion. So
exactly. So yeah, at home it's always rotating. For a while, I definitely had like a big Shindo tube system connected, and my goal was to make sure that music was very easily accessible for my young kids and my wife and so on and so forth, that they were able to put it on at any time and listen to it. So a lot of times when I bring things home, I disrupt that, right? They're like, well, no, okay, what's this new thing? How do you use it? How do you turn it on? I don't want to discourage them or intimidate them from actually listening to music, which they're very passionate about. And seeing that we are I live in Park Slope in Brooklyn, I'm very fortunate to have a house, but still real estate is cramped here, right? So it's like I don't have a dedicated listening room. I have my hi-fi in my living room, but a lot of things happen in the living room, right? Okay. Watching TV, doing homework, building a Lego set, that type of thing. So I'm in that phase of my life right now. So, but thankfully, again, as I mentioned, I'm very grateful that my wife and my children are very passionate about music, both recorded and live. So we come here on the weekends and we spend a lot of time listening together as a family. So in terms of my love of music, I grew up in a household in which obviously my parents worked very hard, and your typical Monday through Friday was school, dinner, homework, bed. But on the weekends, the first thing my father did when he woke up was he turned on the hi-fi. and music was playing all day. So I was exposed to music that way because it was just playing all the time, every weekend. And then as my curiosity continued to grow about, in regards to music, then, you start digging through, hey, is this your record collection? What are these? And I started digging through and pulling out music and putting it on a little turntable and exploring kind of the records that they owned, which traditionally, and my parents are baby boomers, was the Beatles, the Beach Boys, things like that, which are really like the roots of a lot of modern music. So that was kind of where I began. They let me listen to all those records and bring them into my room and explore. And that's also when I started playing with gear, right? The little turntable. What if I do this? Is it going to sound different? And yeah. Well, the first music that I was listening to was definitely Beatles and Beach Boys, and also a lot of Motown music, right? But in terms of the first CD that I bought, this was also kind of, CDs were not, I'm old. I look young, but it was all cassettes, and then CDs came out. In terms of cassettes, I want to say maybe embarrassingly, or maybe not embarrassingly, I'm from New Jersey. It was probably Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. And then my first CD, which was expensive back then to buy a CD, especially like as a kid, was Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. And that's not a bad choice. Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction holds the record for being the biggest selling debut album of any band anytime. So that was the era back then, and I still love those albums. They're amazing. They've stood the test of time for sure. And what I like to say too is that back in the day, when I started getting a little bit deeper into purchasing my own vinyl, vinyl was on the outs and nobody cared about it. It was essentially like garbage to people, right? So if you go to a flea market or a thrift sale or a garage sale at somebody's house, the records were 25 cents, 50 cents for all the best titles. So I really started filling out my music collection very quickly on vinyl, because back then it was very inexpensive. Compared to today, it's much more competitive. If people know what they have now, right? Or sellers, they know what they have. Oh, someone would pay $20 or $30 for this record, or maybe even it's worth $200. So I really started filling out my music collection that way, and it expanded very quickly. I kind of liken it to buying like Google pre-IPO, right? You're like, oh, I bought all this stuff so cheap, and now it's worth so much money. Not that I'm in it for the value, but I would have rather bought Google pre-IPO than records. But I'll take the records. It's fine. I grew up in a suburb of New York City, in New Jersey. Very quick train ride to Madison Square Garden in New York City. So as soon as I was old enough where my parents would trust me to get on a public transit and go into the big bad city and go see a concert, I was like, game on. So my first concert was Tom Petty Wildflowers Tour 1995 at Madison Square Garden, and that was just like a revelation. It was just unbelievable. And I fell in love with live music. I fell in love with Madison Square Garden being this kind of mecca of music. My next concert shortly after that was Jimmy Page and Robert Plant on their No Quarter tour, which, as being a second concert, just like brain on the floor, right? And now when I look back and think about all the beautiful live performances that I saw back then and that I took advantage of, I get so nostalgic and I feel so grateful that I was able to see some of these unbelievable performances in a world-class arena. And just, I mean, it's interesting now, even with the internet, I Google it. I'm like, somehow, did anybody like sneak like a camcorder into that show and record it somehow back then? And a lot of cases, the answer is yes. So like the quality is horrible, but like you can go back and see those performances that like I saw a million years ago, and you're like, man, this was lightning in a bottle that I caught. And that comes back to HiFi. We were trying to recreate those experiences, right, that we can't have anymore because, you know, you're not going to be able to. Tom Petty has passed away. Jimmy Page and Robert Plant probably will never play together ever again. They're old. So yeah, a lot of live music I've seen. I could go on for the next 9 hours about some of the most amazing experiences that, musically that I've seen. Now, I wasn't at Woodstock. I'm not that old. Didn't see the Beatles, didn't see, Jimi Hendrix, but I saw what I could. And I'm continuing to do that with my children as well. Being able to take them to live performances and make sure that they can see what performances by what I would consider national treasures of people, right? Mm-hmm. Take them to go see Paul McCartney. We just took them to go see Stevie Wonder. Things like that. These people that have, Stevie Wonder is an example of just this voice, right? Just this, nobody like him. And so live music is now or never, right? Absolutely. And that performance was spectacular and just in every single way. And then the love there and just unbelievable. And then it's also, there's just nothing like enjoying a performance like that with a huge group of people who are all feeling the same thing at the same time as you, right? And that adds to the performance. And that's actually something that I was talking with Renee about when he came here and we were setting up our new ref monoblocks. Mm-hmm. When we were listening to them and dialing them in, something that I said to Renee about what I was hearing and feeling about the music was that when I go to a live performance, obviously, live performances, sometimes the sound quality is hit or miss, right? But a big part of going to a live performance, aside from the communal aspect of being in a large stadium with a lot of people, is that when you watch musicians playing, whether someone's playing the bass or on the drums, watching them emote when they're playing adds that extra level of emotion and feeling to the music that you're hearing. And I felt that the reference amplifiers brought that out somehow in a way that I have not heard any amplifier and the reference preamp in combination and the anniversary turntable. Okay, now I'm just, this is a Nagra advertisement. It's got to be all Nagra. It was the whole Nagra system. But just somehow this new Nagra reference system was kind of filling in more gaps in the music in terms of getting a better sense of that picture and that feeling of really being there and getting this better sense of the emotion of the musicians getting into what they're playing. Conceptually, it's kind of hard to explain, but I've always felt that you know, when you're listening to music, especially like live performances, you know, sometimes that extra feeling is most of the time it's not there. But you know, in closing my eyes or just sitting there and listening to this reference system, I felt like it just added that whole extra layer on top of the music in terms of getting more of the emotions from the players and musical intentions in what they were playing. Not necessarily even in a sonic perspective, but just emotionally. It was mind-blowing. You know, it was a revelatory the first, you know, time we set it up and started listening to it. And again, being such a huge fan of live performances, to get that extra little bit of feeling of, you know, hey, we're grooving now, you know, kind of in the pocket and kind of feeling like that bass player, he's definitely, oh, I could do, if I could see him now, he's definitely, he's got flair and he's doing a thing, and he's probably looking over to the drummer and saying, hey, we're locked in now, you know, and I just got that feeling, and it was awesome. What we've tried to curate here in terms of equipment and environment in our listening room is a environment in which you can come and we can, whether you know a lot about this stuff in terms of hi-fi equipment, or you know nothing, or you are just a music fan, we've created an environment and an ethos here in which we want to walk down that path with you. This is not about giving hi-fi demonstrations, right? It's about having an experience with you. We're not interested in telling you what sounds good or what sounds bad. We're interested in figuring out what you think sounds good, what you think sounds better, what connects with you, what makes you feel good. And so we're not judging if somebody says, you know, these speakers I don't like, they don't connect with me. In the past, when I was a young little audiophile, some, you know, responses might be like, how could you not like those speakers? They're the best speakers in the world. Everyone loves them. They're the speaker of the year, blah, blah, blah. That's not what we're about here. If something doesn't connect with you, it doesn't connect with you. And if something does connect with you, then we're on the right track, and we want to help you get there. So that's really our ethos here in terms of having people come in and enjoy the beauty of music and music reproduction, and know that if you come in here, we're not judging you, we're not telling you what to do. If you ask us our opinions, we will tell you, but ultimately it's what the listener that's coming in here, it's what sounds good to them is what's important to us, and we want to lead them down the path to reach that point. And so far it's been working great, and people really like that approach, and I think it's the right approach, right? A lot of times people email me, what do you think about this versus that? My answer is, well, what does it matter what I think? Why don't you come in and listen to it and you tell me what the difference is to you? Because we all hear things differently, we all perceive things differently. At the end of the day, this is a subjective thing. As we know, there are certain things that do sound inherently terrible, but there might be someone out there that likes the worst sounding speaker ever, and it's not for me to tell them that they're wrong. Thank you so much. Have a great day.